Today I'm going to be showing you how to get the last light of day sword in Avowed, which is one of the best weapons you can get in the game. Obviously, because you get this weapon early in the game, it's definitely great for the first couple areas, but it's also a weapon that if you upgrade correctly, can last you the entirety of the game. In order to get this weapon, you're going to have to complete the Dawntreader side quest in Dawnshore, which is of course the first area of the game that you can truly explore. This is a really big and detailed quest, and depending on the choices you make, can have a lasting effect on the region and the overall outcome of the world of Avowed as we know it. So with all that said, let's get into how you can complete this quest so we can get our hands on the last light of day sword. Now once you land in Dawnshore at Clavider's Landing, you're going to have the option to roam the entire map before doing any of the main quests. Dawntreader is one of those side quests that you can do before completing the main quest, so you don't actually need to get into the City of Paradise before starting this quest. However, it is important to note that if you want to complete this quest and get your hands on this sword, that you make sure you initiate and complete this quest before finishing all the main quests in Dawnshore, because otherwise this quest will no longer be available to complete. Alright, so if you haven't already completed Message from Afar, which is the first main quest in Dawnshore, then all you have to do is find your way up toward the top of the map, right around this area, near the Northern Farms Beacon, which as you can see is east of the Godless Ruins, and just north of the City of Paradise. If you were to start from this location and look directly north, you'll see some enemy Zarups guarding the path in front of you, and you'll have to take all of them out before continuing forward down this path, which will eventually lead to the entrance of the temple that we need to get to. Now on the other hand, if you've already finished the first main quest, Message from Afar, then of course the City of Paradise will be open for you to roam. Here you can find a person that you can speak with that has an exclamation point on the map, which you can see is right in front of the Aedyran embassy, and if you wanted to track this quest and start it the normal way, you just go speak with this person, and he'll give you the quest and a waypoint to follow. Regardless, we're going to end up in the same location, up here at the Northern Farms Beacon, where again you'll have to make sure you clear out the Zarups in front of you, so you can then head up Pilgrim's Path until you reach the Eothasian Temple. Now you can speak with the two women that are on this path, however it's not necessary, and if you feel like it you can just run right by them and head right to the temple. Once you enter the temple, you'll see the body of a bear off to the right with a spear inside of it, and that's actually the direction we're going to want to head. However, there is an optional area you can reach over to the left, where you'll simply need to use a shock ability, so something like K-Rock's Pride, or simply use the electric lily seed throwables to hit the essence generator and open the doorway. If you decide to go in here, there are going to be a few enemies you can take out, and then you can collect the loot that's in here, as well as a journal that can help you understand a little bit more of what's going on in this temple. Truly, there's nothing special back here, so if you want to skip it, that's up to you. But once you're done in here, we can head back down the other path, where eventually we'll come to a large opening with an incredible view of the temple. Both Kai and the voice will say something as you approach this area. Now just continue following the path down to the right until the quest eventually updates. You'll see that you only have one direction you can actually go without falling off, so just follow it down and keep going this direction until you hit a fork where you can either go left or right. Kai will mention to you that you can either sneak by them or decide to fight. Either way, you'll eventually end up in the same area, so whichever way you decide to go really doesn't matter. But personally, I always choose to fight because I can gather more loot and get more XP. Whichever way you decided to go, you'll eventually end up just underneath this small waterfall where you have to jump across to an area that has a trap right here. As you can see, I just passed over it. And off to the right, there's an area where shock damage is accumulating on the ground, so if you don't want to take any damage, it's best to jump over this area right under the stairs. Now once you go behind this area, you'll eventually find Caedmon, one of the expedition crew. Now it's optional if you want to speak with him, and if you do decide to talk to him, you can either decide to help him by giving him a healing potion, or if you've already completed the Message from Afar main quest, you can use your godlike ability to heal him as well, or you can simply ignore him and leave him here to figure it out for himself. It's truly up to you. All this will do is change some dialogue once you get back into Paradise. Although the person that gave you this quest inside of the city probably won't be so happy that you left this guy behind. Now once you've decided what to do with Caedmon, you're going to want to continue down the path further into the temple, and right before you get to the wooden bridge, you'll have to take out two Zarups that are in your way. And there are also some things that you can collect on your way down. Now once you get to this big opening where you see the Oracle, the statue, and the Aedyran stone, you're going to have a choice of what to do next. You have the option to speak with the Oracle now, or you can continue on and speak with him once you find out more about what happened to the expedition team, as well as what he's planning. If you choose to speak with him now, he's going to ask for your help in finding the Splinter of Eothas, a relic that's seemingly important to his experiment. And of course, in order to collect this, we're going to have to go even deeper into the temple. So assuming we go past the Oracle, if you want, you can go behind the statue and to the left, where you can find some loot that you can pick up. But either way, both paths are going to lead to this area over here, where we have a barred door to the left, and the only way that we can go is by going into this water and swimming down. Once you resurface in the next room, you can decide to use the breakable wall over to the right that you can simply throw a grenade at in order to break open, which will make it easier to access this room and pick up any loot that's in here. Or you can simply shoot the essence generator, which will open the gate underneath the water and allow you to access the chest that's in the water in that same room. Again, nothing here is necessary, because either way we still have to go deeper into the temple. Now once you resurface again from the water and get to this next room, you'll notice that it's flooded with water on the ground, and seems to be some sort of library or workshop. Once you peek over to the right, you're going to see a bunch of spider enemies on the ground, And if you look up, you can shoot the electric lily seeds so they come down and cause an electric trap in the water that can help you take out these enemies fast. Otherwise, if you already have the electric pistol, you can simply just use that to shoot the water or shoot the enemies and take them out that way. Either way, make sure you take out all the enemies in this room, and if you want, you can go around collecting all these different journals that are scattered throughout the room. Once you get to the end, you can also look at this map that details exactly how the statue works as well as how to destroy it. But this isn't why we're here, so if you just look over to the left, you're going to see a spider web that you can burn away, either by using a Magrin's Fury throwable or by using Kai's Firestarter ability. You're then going to come to another big open area that's also flooded with water, and this time there will be plenty of enemies that you're going to need to take out. So again, think about using the water as an electric trap to try and take out these enemies a lot faster. Of course, you can search the area to try and find extra loot, but eventually you're going to have to go over to the middle of this room, jump up onto the collapsed bridge, and jump across to the other platform that leads into another room. Now before going in, I always like to turn over to the right and shoot this essence generator over here with my pistol, or of course using an electric throwable, but you're not going to be able to get over to this area just yet, so you'll have to wait until after we come back out of this room to get inside of the door that we just opened. I just like to open it up now so I don't forget about it when we come back out of this room. Now once we enter this area, the voice is going to talk to us, so of course that means we're going in the right direction. And now if you wanted to, you can simply take the relic and move on. However, there is some pretty good loot in here, so if you want to make sure you get everything in this room, start off by going down here to this broken wall to the left, and you can go here to the back and see the crack in the wall, where there's another essence generator that you can activate. If you go above you on the next level, you'll see that one of the generators is active, and now you just need to find the other one. Luckily, that's pretty easy to do, because once you go over to the area with the relic, as you'll see, it'll be right here in front of you, look over to the left, and you'll see the second generator that you need to activate. That'll open the room off to the left, where there'll be a sarcophagus that you can open up and loot a bunch of good stuff from. You'll also notice there's a barred door to your right that you can see as something you can collect inside, and while it's not necessarily the best loot, if you're like me and want to collect everything you can possibly gather, then I'm sure you're going to want to find your way into this room. So in order to get there, you're going to want to look slightly to the right of the relic that you're going to eventually collect, but make sure not to grab it now, or else you're going to have a hard time doing this, and there's going to be a breakable pot in front of a hole in the wall. And you have to be crouched almost the entire time that you're back here, so it might be a good idea to go into first person if you're not already in it. And on your way, you're going to have to keep breaking down pots and other breakable objects in order to continue further into this room. Eventually you'll get to an area where there's a small chest that you can loot, and one skeleton enemy will spawn here. But like I said, it's only one, and he's really easy to take out, so just make sure you're aware that you will get attacked at least once. Now as you can see, we finally made it through that crawl space, and came back out on the right side. Now we're able to unbar this door that was on the right. Alright, so once you've collected everything in the room, you're ready to pick up the Splinter of Eothas. And you'll notice as soon as you pick it up, the room is going to start to shake, and as you turn around, you'll start seeing skeleton enemies spawning in the room with you. Now fortunately for you, you have a choice of what you want to do. You can simply just run past all of these enemies, and head back the direction that we came in, and you will be able to fully get away, and not have to worry about doing any fighting. However, if you decide to stick around and start taking out some of the skeleton enemies, eventually a boss will appear, and it'll initiate a boss fight with the Godless Executioner. He's really just another type of skeleton, and to be honest, I think he's one of the easier bosses to take out, so to me it's worth it to stay here and fight him, because of course you're going to gain XP, but more importantly because after you defeat him, he's going to drop some loot, and in that loot is going to be a chunk of Aedyran. So because he's not that difficult, I usually stick around and take him out, loot everything in the room, and now as we exit out this main chamber, remember I shot that essence generator off to the left when we first walked into the room, and now you'll see it's going to look a lot different in here, but that's fortunate for us because now we're going to be able to use any freeze ability or simply shoot the ice grenades that are right above us and let it drop onto the water so you can skip across to the other side. Now you can go into this room and collect the loot. Now when we head back, all you have to do is get up onto this tree and use it as a bridge to get across the room. However, in the spirit of collecting as much as possible, there's also going to be another chest directly above you, and in order to get to that, you're going to have to jump over into this area on the left, and then jump over onto this platform to get up onto the higher part of the tree, and then use that to walk over to this area here, and you'll see the chest right in this area. Alright, now that we collected everything possible, we're simply going to find our way across the water, using this as a bridge, and of course pick up this little loot over here as well. And now we're going to climb over to the right, where it's going to tell us to make our way back to the Oracle, as well as still looking for the expedition team. Now once you get over here, you're going to notice a little window off to your left, and you can actually drop down into this room, and eventually if you do enough playing around, you will probably find the door that can open up into the next area, which is where we're going to eventually want to go. However, there's a much easier way to get into that room. Just simply stay crouched and follow the purple glow that you're seeing right over here. Continue moving this direction until you see an opening in the ground, which seems to be the source of that purple glow. Now just drop down into this room, and you're going to see what looks like a secret door right over here. And if we go and interact with the switch to open that door up, you're going to see that's the room that we saw through that little window. So again, you can go either way, but this just seems a little bit easier, especially if you're not sure how to open this door from the other room, which I will show you on our way out of this area. Now of course, before collecting everything we need to move on, make sure you go around the room and find any loot that you can. And then as you approach these bodies in the middle of the room, both you and Kai will notice that this is the Aedyran expedition team, and clearly something awful happened to them. Glowing on top of their bodies is going to be a journal that you can pick up, and can tell you even more about what's going on here and with the Oracle. Now once we've collected this, that's really all we need in here. So head back through that secret door that we opened before, and I'm going to show you really quick that if you happen to have dropped into the yellow room before going into the one that's glowing purple, you can still open that secret doorway by interacting with these switches right over here by what looks like a dartboard. But be careful, because both the top switch and the one to the left will activate a trap that will shoot knives where you're standing. It's the switch on the right that you want to use to activate the doorway. Now in order to leave this room, all you have to do is go up these steps, and eventually you'll come to a barred door, which once you go back outside, you'll notice is the one that we found when we first came over to this area after passing the Oracle. At this point, we have all the information that we need to make a decision on what we're going to do when it comes to this quest and the Oracle. So the main question that usually comes up when it comes to this quest is, do you want to help or do you want to kill the Oracle? And while this decision will ultimately fall to you, there are a couple things that you should know about how this can play out. So when you decide to speak with the Oracle, at pretty much any point during the conversation, you can simply choose to attack him, and no matter where you are in the conversation, a boss fight will commence with Sargamis. If you were to decide to attack and defeat Sargamis, you can then loot the last light of day sword from his body, and then you'll have a decision on whether or not to entertain the voice. And the decision to entertain the voice is something that we'll talk about in a little bit, because that'll come after our decision with the Oracle. Now, if you decide to help the Oracle, multiple options will become available. You can actually choose to sacrifice yourself in order to help him, which will sadly only lead to your death, and you'll get an Into the Beyond screen where you'll end up reloading from your latest save. However, at least on Xbox, you do get an achievement for doing this, so if that's part of what you want to do, just make sure you have a somewhat recent save that you can go back to. Now you can also agree to sacrifice yourself in order to help him, but ultimately back out right before he turns the switch, and this will simply result in him becoming hostile and attacking you. So that just means you'll end up in the boss fight regardless. So pretty much, the decision to sacrifice yourself can lead to two options. Either you dying, and possibly getting an achievement if you haven't done it already, or starting the boss fight with the Oracle. Now another option you have, and one that I personally went with the first time, was actually convincing him to sacrifice himself through certain dialogue options. If this is what you want to do, you'll eventually come to the point of the conversation where he mentions chimes. And whenever this option pops up for you, this is what you should choose. The chime of an unknown godlike wouldn't interest Eothas. It has to be you. You can then choose the dialogue option that mentions a certain amount of years, and this should get him to agree that it has to be him that sacrifices himself, in which he'll then ask you to help him out by activating the statue. If you decide to choose this option, once you interact with the switch, he'll die, and again he'll drop the last light of day sword that you can loot from his body. And once again, after having done this, you'll get the option of whether or not to entertain the voice. Now there is another option when it comes to Sargamis, and that is that you can convince him to stop the experiment entirely, although this is only available through certain dialogue options. Early in the game, when you first made your character, you would have chosen which kind of background story you want for your hero. In my first run through, I chose the war hero background, so I didn't have the option to stop him the first time around. However, this time I chose the arcane scholar. So if you either chose the scholar or court augur, both of those character backgrounds will give you a choice to convince him to abandon his plans. At that point, all you have to do is continue talking him through it, and make sure that you tell him that you're confident in what you know. He'll then second guess himself and eventually abandon his plans. Now if you had chosen this option, you're still going to be able to collect the last light of day sword. However, you'll do that on your way out of the temple after taking the lift up to the next room where you can speak with Sargamis. When it comes to the last light of day sword, again one of the best weapons in the entire game, regardless of which option you choose, whether it's to help or kill the Oracle, you're still going to be able to collect the sword. The only way you don't get the sword is if you don't speak with the Oracle at all and decide to leave and go back to the embassy and finish the quest with the relic in hand. It's worth it to at least do the optional objective of speaking to the Oracle. Now after dealing with the Oracle, regardless of which decision you made, you're still going to have another decision to make. Whether or not the voice talks to you, you can go up to the Aedyran stone and speak with it. You're now going to have to decide whether or not to give the voice the statue or to destroy it. The voice is going to say that it can use this statue for something in the future, but sadly you're not going to know what the outcomes could be. But if you decide to destroy the statue, the voice will be furious with you, and there are certain unique cutscenes at the end of the game that you will not get. However, there's really no harm in doing this, although it does lead to a couple extra steps of you having to go around and find the essence generators that you need in order to destroy the statue. Now of course the other option is to give the voice the statue. You can simply just say the statue is all yours, and while nothing will happen immediately, at the end of the game, you will get an additional unique cutscene that explains what happened to the statue, as long as you make a certain choice near the end of the game that allows for this to happen. Now of course, as always, there is a third option. You can simply ignore the voice altogether and just leave the temple. Again, there are no immediate repercussions to any of these options, but it's nice knowing that these choices actually have an impact on the outcome of the game. Alright, now we're going to talk about the rewards that you can get from the Dawntreader quest. Obviously, regardless of your choices, As long as you dealt with the Oracle in some way, you should already have the last light of day sword. If you're currently leaving the temple and still need to speak to Sargamis, make sure you do that on your way out of the last room, as he'll simply just hand it over to you with some clear regret of his previous actions. Then you'll be tasked with heading back to Paradise and speaking with Ulfric outside the Aedyran embassy. If you decided to save him, you'll notice Caedmon is right beside him, and after this conversation is over, regardless of what you tell them that became of the Oracle and the expedition team, you'll receive Delver's Caution, a unique ring that gives you +1 dexterity and +15% parkour speed. Now as far as the outcomes of this quest, again without spoiling too much, I'll simply tell you that if you kept Sargamis alive by convincing him to abandon his plans, and in that dialogue you should have chosen to give him some way to make amends, this will result in an additional unique cutscene at the end of the game. As for the voice in the statue, if you decided to give the voice the statue, this will also result in an additional unique cutscene at the end of the game. But this one does hinge on another decision that you make later in the game. And although I mentioned it briefly before, there is also an option to skip speaking with the Oracle and skip speaking with the voice, and then you can just simply give the relic over to the embassy when you get back to Paradise. However, this doesn't give you any special rewards or unique endings. So this option is not advised if you want to get the best rewards as well as the best endings. And then the last option, which we didn't talk about at all, is simply just to skip all the optional parts of the quest, as in don't speak with the Oracle, don't speak with the voice, and then just keeping the relic for yourself. So when you get back to the Aedyran embassy, you just lie and decide to keep it for yourself, and then you can actually sell it for some coin at some vendors. However, it really isn't worth that much, and otherwise there's nothing else that you can do with it. So again, this option is definitely not recommended if you're trying to get the best out of the game. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it. Like I said, that is a long and detailed quest with a ton of different options, a ton of different choices, and a ton of different ways that you can change the outcome of the game. This is probably one of the best quests in the entire game, so make sure you really take your time to go through this and decide what the best outcome is for you. But regardless of the choices you decide to make sure you at least speak with the Oracle so you can get your hands on the last light of day sword, because that's really what this video was all about. This is one of the best swords in the entire game, as it has an ability that when you kill an enemy, it restores up to 3% of your maximum health, and it also has a bonus ability that allows each hit to deal plus 10% bonus fire damage. So at the same time that this sword is giving fire damage to enemies, it's also healing you every time you kill one. And what really makes this one of the best weapons in the game is that when you go to enchant your weapon at your party camp, you can enchant it with an even better effect. Instead of only replenishing 3% of your health when killing an enemy, you can up that to 10%. So each time you kill an enemy, you're replenishing 10% of your maximum health. Combine that with its bonus fire damage on each hit, and you're talking about a sword that's not only amazing in the beginning of the game, but again, if you upgrade it correctly and know how to use it in combination with other weapons, can last you the entirety of Avowed. But alright guys, that's how you get the last light of day sword in Avowed, by doing the Dawntreader side quest in Dawnshore. Like I said, this is one of the best quests in the entire game, so make sure you try to appreciate it while you're going through it. And if you really want to get the full experience, make sure to keep a manual save right before making the major decisions in the quest. This way you can go back and experience all of them to see which immediate outcome you like the best. But alright guys, that's all I got, so I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please drop a like and subscribe, because it really goes a long way to help me build this channel, and more importantly, because I really appreciate it. Anyway, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.